"You'll sit in the back with the kitchen staff," my sister Olivia announced, not even looking up from her seating chart. "I can't have you at the family table looking like that." She waved her perfectly manicured hand in my general direction, her engagement ring catching the light from the crystal chandelier in our parents' dining room. The wedding planner beside her nodded sympathetically, as if I were a stain that needed hiding. I stood in the doorway of what used to be my childhood home, wearing my hospital scrubs because I had come straight from a 30-hour shift. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun. My face was bare of makeup. I probably smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. But I had rushed here because Olivia said it was urgent, important, family emergency. The emergency, apparently, was that I might embarrass her at her wedding in 2 weeks. I smiled. Not the warm smile I gave my patients. The other one. The one that meant I knew something she didn't. "Whatever makes you happy, Olivia." My mother looked up sharply from her champagne glass. Something in my tone made her pause. But Olivia just laughed, already moving on to more important decisions about centerpieces and cake flavors. "My name is Maya Chen." No, wait, I promise not to use that surname. "My name is Maya Torres. I am 32 years old, and until this moment, I had been the family's invisible daughter, the one who worked too much, never married, and somehow failed to be as perfect as Olivia. My younger sister was 28, blonde, beautiful, and about to marry Marcus Wellington, heir to the Wellington pharmaceutical empire. Their wedding would be featured in 3 magazines, 200 guests, a designer dress that cost more than my car, everything Olivia had ever wanted. I was a trauma surgeon at City General Hospital. I worked 100-hour weeks. I had 3 medical degrees in hands that had saved over 200 lives in the past 5 years. But in my family, that meant nothing compared to Olivia's engagement ring. For 28 years, I had accepted this. I had smiled through every comparison, every disappointed look when I showed up to family dinners in scrubs instead of cocktail dresses, every comment about how I should focus less on work and more on finding a husband. I had stayed quiet and focused on my patients, on saving lives, on being good at something that mattered. But 3 weeks ago, something changed. And now, as I stood in that dining room being told to sit with the servants, I felt nothing but calm. The change started with an email. Subject line, confidential inquiry regarding Dr. Maya Torres. I had opened it during a rare break between surgeries, expecting another journal asking me to peer review an article. Instead, it was from the Wellington Foundation's board of directors. They wanted to meet with me. Privately, urgently. I almost deleted it. The Wellingtons were my future in-laws, and I assumed this was some wedding-related task Olivia had volunteered me for without asking. But the signature at the bottom stopped me. Theodore Wellington, Marcus's grandfather and chairman of the board. The meeting took place in a private office far from the main Wellington building. Theodore was 83, sharp as a scalpel, and wasted no time on pleasantries. "Dr. Torres, what I'm about to tell you stays in this room," he began, sliding a folder across his desk. "My grandson is making a terrible mistake, and I believe you're the only person who can help me stop it." Inside the folder were financial records, private investigator reports, and a timeline that made my blood run cold. Marcus Wellington, the charming heir everyone adored, was not who he appeared to be, and Olivia, my perfect sister, was about to marry a man with very dark secrets. Theodore's investigation had started 6 months ago when he noticed irregularities in the foundation's accounts. Money moving to offshore accounts, fake invoices for medical equipment that never arrived, grant money meant for hospitals disappearing into private ventures. The trail led to Marcus. His own grandson was embezzling from the family's charitable foundation. Millions of dollars meant to fund medical research and community health programs were being funneled into Marcus's personal accounts and high-risk investments. "But that's not the worst part," Theodore said, his hands shaking slightly as he opened another file. "He has a pattern. This isn't his first engagement. There were 3 other women, all from wealthy families. All engagements that ended abruptly after Marcus gained access to family businesses, investments, or trust funds. One woman's father lost his company after Marcus convinced him to invest in a fraudulent scheme. Another family's charitable foundation was nearly bankrupted. He chooses women from successful families, Theodore explained. He studies their weaknesses, their desires. He becomes exactly what they want, and then he destroys them financially while looking like the victim when the engagement ends. The engagement ends. Why are you telling me this? I asked, though I already knew. Because your sister won't listen to me. She thinks I'm a bitter old man trying to control Marcus. But you're a surgeon. You understand evidence. And you love your sister, even if she doesn't see it. I should have gone straight to Olivia with Theodore's evidence. I should have shown her the bank statements, the investigator reports, the testimonies from Marcus's previous victims. But I knew my sister. She would assume I was jealous, trying to ruin her perfect wedding because I couldn't find my own happiness. So instead, I did what I do best. I investigated, carefully, methodically, like diagnosing a patient, follow the symptoms, run the tests, confirm the diagnosis before treatment. I started with Marcus's previous engagements. I tracked down the 3 women Theodore had mentioned. 2 refused to talk to me. The third, a woman named Caroline, agreed to meet for coffee. He was perfect, Caroline told me, stirring her latte with shaking hands. He knew exactly what to say, what I needed to hear. My father had just died, and I inherited his tech company. Marcus offered to help me modernize it, grow it. He introduced me to investors who turned out to be con artists. By the time I realized what was happening, we'd lost everything. Did you report it? I asked. She laughed bitterly. To who? Marcus made sure all the paperwork had my signature. His hands were clean, and when I tried to expose him, his lawyers buried me in lawsuits until I had nothing left to fight with. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case. I hired my own investigator, a former FBI agent named Patricia who specialized in financial fraud. I gave her Theodore's files and asked her to verify everything and find more. What she discovered was worse than I imagined. Marcus had a 4th victim we hadn't known about. A 5th. The pattern went back 8 years. He was meticulous, careful, and getting bolder with each scheme. Your sister's family has substantial assets, Patricia told me during our last meeting. Her trust fund from your grandmother, your father's medical supply company. He's not just after the Wellington money, he's after yours too. I had also been investigating Olivia, not because I suspected her of anything, but because I needed to understand what Marcus knew, what vulnerabilities he had identified and exploited. That's when I found the prenuptial agreement Marcus had convinced her to sign. In the event of divorce, Olivia would get nothing. But if the marriage ended due to irreconcilable differences after 5 years, Marcus would receive a substantial settlement from her trust fund. And buried in the complicated legal language was a clause giving Marcus power of attorney over her assets during the marriage. It was a trap, a sophisticated legal trap that would leave my sister penniless while Marcus walked away with millions. I should have felt angry, furious. But instead, I felt the same cold calm I experienced during surgery. The moment when everything becomes clear and you know exactly what needs to be done. I couldn't just show Olivia the evidence. She would deny it, defend Marcus, and probably cut me out of her life completely. I couldn't go to my parents. They were so dazzled by the Wellington name that they wouldn't believe their perfect future son-in-law could be a criminal. I needed something bigger, something undeniable, something public. So I started planning, and like any good surgeon, I planned for precision. One cut in exactly the right place at exactly the right moment. No wasted movements, no second chances. I met with Theodore again. I need you to trust me, I told him, and I need you to do exactly as I say for the next 2 weeks. Can you do that? The old man studied me with sharp eyes. Then he smiled. Marcus underestimated you. They all did. What do you need? First, I need you to act completely normal. Excited about the wedding. No hints that anything is wrong. Second, I need you to make sure Marcus believes he's won, that everything is going according to his plan. And third, I need an invitation to give the toast at the rehearsal dinner. The next family dinner was 3 days later. I arrived early, wearing the dress my mother had bought me last Christmas, the one she said made me look almost pretty. I had done my makeup, curled my hair, played the part of the dutiful older sister trying to fit in. Olivia looked surprised when I walked in. Maya, you look nice. I wanted to make an effort, I said sweetly. This is your big week. I want to be supportive. My mother actually teared up. See, Olivia? Your sister is finally trying. Throughout dinner, I was perfect. I laughed at Marcus's jokes. I asked questions about the wedding plans. I even apologized to Olivia for being difficult lately and blamed it on work stress. I know I've been distant, I said, touching her hand across the table, but I want you to know how happy I am for you. Marcus is exactly what you deserve. The double meaning was lost on everyone except Marcus. For just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Suspicion, maybe, or recognition. But then he smiled his charming smile and raised his glass. To family, he said, and to Maya for finally joining the celebration. I smiled back and raised my glass. Yes, to family, and to everything Marcus was about to lose. The wedding invitation arrived at my apartment the next day, but it wasn't the regular invitation. It was a small note card in Olivia's handwriting. Maya, I'm sorry about what I said before. Mom told me you've been making an effort, and it means a lot. I'd love for you to sit at the family table after all, and maybe, would you give a toast at the rehearsal dinner? I know we haven't been close lately, but you're still my sister, Olivia. I held the note for a long moment. Despite everything, despite years of comparisons and criticisms and casual cruelty, this small gesture touched something in me. Olivia wasn't evil. She was just shallow, insecure, and desperate to be special, and Marcus had exploited that perfectly. I texted her back. I would be honored. Thank you. Then I called Patricia. It's time. I need everything ready for the rehearsal dinner. Can you do it? Already done, she replied. The evidence packets are prepared. The witnesses are confirmed. The authorities are briefed. All you have to do is give the signal. And the media? 3 major outlets will be outside the venue. They think they're there for a society wedding feature. They have no idea what they're really going to witness. I took a deep breath. In 5 days, everything would change. Marcus's perfect plan would crumble. Olivia would hate me, probably forever. My family would be devastated, but my sister would be safe. And sometimes being the villain is the only way to be the hero. The next few days passed in a blur of final preparations. I reviewed the evidence packets with Patricia until I could recite every detail from memory. I practiced my toast, timing each revelation for maximum impact. I coordinated with Theodore, who had quietly invited several board members and family lawyers to attend the rehearsal dinner. I also did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping, not for a dress, I already had one, but for jewelry. Specifically, the diamond necklace my grandmother had left me in her will, the one I had never worn because it seemed too fancy for a surgeon who spent most of her time in scrubs. That's a museum piece, the jeweler said when I brought it in for cleaning. Art Deco, 1920s, probably worth $500,000. Your grandmother had excellent taste. She had excellent judgment, I corrected. She left it to me instead of my sister for a reason. The day before the rehearsal dinner, I went to the hospital and requested a week of personal leave. My supervisor was shocked. I never took time off. But when I explained it was a family emergency, she approved it immediately. Is everything okay? She asked, concerned. It will be, I replied. After tomorrow night, everything will finally be okay. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Grandview Estate, a historic mansion overlooking the harbor. 200 guests, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet. Olivia had planned it to be almost as impressive as the actual wedding. I arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple black dress and my grandmother's necklace. Several people did double takes as I walked in. I had straightened my hair, done professional makeup, and carried myself with the quiet confidence I usually reserved for the operating room. Maya, my mother stared at me. You look beautiful. Thank you, I replied calmly. Where should I sit? At the family table, of course. She was still staring at the necklace. Is that mother's? Yes, I thought tonight was the right occasion to wear it. Olivia appeared at my elbow, radiant in a white rehearsal dinner dress. Maya, you look amazing. She hugged me, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume and champagne. Thank you so much for agreeing to give a toast. It really means everything to me. Over her shoulder, I saw Marcus watching us. He looked perfect in his tailored suit, his smile warm and genuine. But I saw what others didn't. The calculation in his eyes, the slight tension in his jaw. He was studying me, trying to figure out what had changed. Anything for my sister, I said, meeting Marcus's gaze directly. This is your special night. I want it to be unforgettable. Dinner was served. I ate slowly, making small talk with relatives I hadn't seen in years. I complimented Olivia's dress. I laughed at my father's jokes. I was the perfect older sister, supportive and happy and completely harmless. Around me, I noticed Theodore had positioned his people strategically throughout the room. Board members, lawyers, accountants. They looked like regular wedding guests, but they all had folders discreetly placed under their chairs. Patricia was there too, dressed as a photographer, but I knew she was recording everything. The speeches began after dessert. My father went first, telling embarrassing childhood stories about Olivia. Marcus's best man went next, making jokes about how Marcus had finally found someone who could tolerate him. Everyone laughed. The champagne flowed freely. Then the wedding planner tapped her glass. And now we have a very special toast from the bride's sister, Dr. Maya Torres. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. Every eye in the room turned to me. Olivia was beaming, her hand clasped in Marcus's. My mother looked proud for the first time in years. Marcus looked relaxed, confident, ready to enjoy whatever sweet sisterly sentiment I was about to deliver. I picked up my champagne glass and smiled. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Olivia and Marcus. This is indeed a very special occasion. I'd like to start, I continued, my voice steady and clear, by talking about love. Real love. The kind that's built on honesty, trust, and genuine partnership. The kind my grandmother had with my grandfather for 60 years. She used to tell me that the foundation of any marriage is truth. Without truth, you have nothing. Olivia nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. She thought this was going to be emotional and heartwarming. My grandmother was a wise woman. She also taught me to pay attention, to look beyond the surface, to trust evidence over emotions. I paused, letting that sink in. She was a surgeon too, you see. She understood the importance of diagnosis before treatment. A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Theodore was watching me intently, his hand near his phone. So when I learned about Marcus's previous engagements, I let the word hang in the air. I decided to investigate, because I love my sister, and I wanted to make sure she was making an informed decision. Olivia's smile faltered. Marcus's hand tightened on his glass. The room went very quiet. Marcus, you've been engaged 5 times before this. Did Olivia know that? The silence was deafening. Olivia turned to look at Marcus, confusion spreading across her face. What is she talking about? Marcus recovered quickly. Maya, this is inappropriate. You're upset about something, but this isn't the time. You're right, I interrupted smoothly. This isn't about me being upset. This is about financial fraud, embezzlement, and a pattern of predatory behavior spanning 8 years. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's projection screen. The wedding planner had set it up for showing photos of the happy couple. Now it displayed something else entirely. Bank statements appeared on the screen, transfer records, offshore accounts, all marked with evidence tags and legal annotations. For 8 years, Marcus Wellington has been engaged to wealthy women. He gains their trust, accesses their family's finances, and systematically drains their resources through fraudulent investments and embezzlement schemes. I clicked to the next slide. These are the 5 women before Olivia. Each engagement ended with the woman's family financially devastated, while Marcus walked away legally clean. Gasps filled the room. People pulled out their phones. Marcus stood abruptly. This is absurd. Olivia, your sister, is clearly having some kind of breakdown. Sit down, Marcus. Theodore's voice cut through the chaos. The old man stood, his face hard as stone. I've seen the evidence. The board has seen the evidence. The authorities have seen the evidence, and tomorrow morning both the Wellington Foundation and the federal prosecutors will be filing charges. Marcus's face went white. Let me show you something else, Olivia. I clicked to the next slide, the prenuptial agreement. This is the prenup Marcus asked you to sign. Did you have a lawyer review it? Marcus said it was standard, Olivia whispered, her voice shaking. He said all wealthy families do this. Page 17, Section 4. The relevant clause appeared highlighted on the screen. In the event of divorce after 5 years, Marcus receives a substantial settlement from your trust fund. And page 22, Section 9. During the marriage, Marcus has power of attorney over all your assets, including your trust fund, your inheritance, and your share of Dad's company. My father stood up, his face purple with rage. You were planning to steal from my daughter? I was protecting my interests. Marcus snarled, his charming mask finally slipping. You people act like I'm the villain, but you have no idea. We have recorded conversations, I continued, my voice cutting through his protests. Phone calls where you discussed your plans with your business associates, text messages about how the Torres family is the perfect target, emails about moving money offshore after the wedding. Would you like me to play them? Olivia made a sound, half sob, half gasp. She tore her engagement ring off and threw it at Marcus. It bounced off his chest and rolled across the floor. You lied to me about everything. Marcus tried to leave, but Theodore's security team was already blocking the exits. The authorities are on their way, Theodore said quietly. You're not going anywhere. I turned to my sister. She was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face. Olivia, I'm so sorry. I know you loved him. I know this hurts, but I couldn't let him destroy you. How long have you known? She asked, her voice barely audible. 3 weeks. I've been investigating, gathering evidence, making sure we had enough to stop him legally. Why didn't you tell me right away? Because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought I was jealous or crazy or trying to ruin your happiness. I knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hands. I needed proof, undeniable proof. I needed to save you, even if it meant you'd hate me for it. My mother appeared on Olivia's other side, her face stricken. Maya, we never appreciated. I'm so sorry. The room erupted into chaos as the reality sank in. Guests were talking over each other. Several board members were on their phones. Marcus was shouting about lawyers and false accusations. But I stayed focused on my sister, on the woman I had just saved from a nightmare she didn't even know she was walking into. I don't hate you, Olivia finally whispered. I should, but I don't. You saved me. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They arrested Marcus on charges of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted theft. He was still protesting his innocence as they led him away in handcuffs, but the evidence was overwhelming. Theodore approached me as the guests began to disperse in stunned silence. That was the most surgical takedown I've ever witnessed, he said with grudging admiration. You could have told her privately. You could have just shown her the evidence. Why did you do it this way? Because Marcus is a master manipulator, I replied. If I had told Olivia privately, he would have convinced her I was lying. He would have shown her forged documents proving his innocence. He would have isolated her from anyone who questioned him. By exposing him publicly, with irrefutable evidence and witnesses, I made sure there was no way for him to talk his way out of it. And the media outside? I smiled slightly. They'll report the truth. Marcus's pattern of predatory behavior will be public record. His next potential victim will be able to Google his name and find out exactly who he is. I didn't just save my sister. I saved every woman he might have targeted next. Theodore shook his head in amazement. Your grandmother would have been proud. She always said you had the heart of a warrior. She also said the best defense is a good offense. I learned that in the OR. The aftermath was chaotic. The wedding was canceled, obviously. The venue, the flowers, the photographers, all canceled within 24 hours. The story broke in the news the next morning. Wellington Air arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Olivia stayed at my apartment for a week. We didn't talk much at first. She cried a lot. She went through all the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression. I just stayed close, making sure she ate and slept and didn't fall apart completely. On the third day, she finally asked the question I'd been expecting. Did you ever like him? Even a little bit? No, I answered honestly. From the first time I met him, something felt off. He was too perfect, too charming. It reminded me of some of the pharmaceutical reps who try to manipulate doctors into prescribing their drugs. All surface, no substance. Everyone else liked him. Everyone else wanted to like him. There's a difference. They saw what they wanted to see, a handsome, wealthy, charming man from a good family. They didn't look deeper. Olivia was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, Maya, for everything, for treating you like you didn't matter, for making fun of your work, for acting like being a doctor was less important than marrying well. I know. Can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. You're my sister. My parents took longer to process everything. My father was furious, mostly at himself for not seeing through Marcus earlier. My mother was devastated by her own blindness to what was happening. We were so obsessed with Olivia's perfect wedding, my mother confessed during a tearful conversation at her house. We forgot that you were doing something actually important with your life, saving actual lives, making a real difference. I never wanted you to choose between us, I said quietly. I just wanted to be seen. We saw you, she insisted. We didn't value what we saw. We wanted Olivia to be successful by getting married. We didn't understand that you were already successful by being brilliant. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Years of feeling invisible don't disappear overnight. But it was a start, and for the first time in my life, my mother looked at me with something that resembled respect. The Wellington Foundation moved quickly to contain the damage. Theodore brought in forensic accountants to trace all of Marcus's transactions. They recovered most of the stolen money and returned it to the families Marcus had defrauded. The foundation also established new oversight protocols to prevent future embezzlement. Several of Marcus's previous victims reached out to thank me. Caroline, the woman I had interviewed, sent a beautiful note. You did what I couldn't. You stopped him. Thank you. The legal proceedings took months. Marcus's lawyers tried everything, claiming the evidence was fabricated, accusing me of harassment, attempting to discredit Theodore's investigation. But Patricia's work was too thorough. Every piece of evidence was documented, verified, and legally obtained. Marcus was eventually sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for fraud, embezzlement, and racketeering. The judge called his behavior predatory and calculated, and noted that he had shown no remorse for the families he had destroyed. I attended every hearing, sitting in the back of the courtroom in my scrubs, fresh from surgery. I wanted Marcus to see that I wasn't intimidated, that I would be there to ensure justice was served. And every time our eyes met, I saw the moment he realized he had underestimated the wrong person. Olivia slowly rebuilt her life. She went back to school, not for an MRS degree like our mother had pushed for, but for a master's in nonprofit management. She wanted to work with organizations that helped victims of financial fraud. She wanted to turn her experience into something meaningful. I wasted so much time trying to be perfect, she told me one evening over coffee. Trying to have the perfect boyfriend, the perfect wedding, the perfect life. I didn't realize that real perfection is about being authentic, about doing work that matters, like you. You're not me, I reminded her gently. You don't have to be a doctor or save lives to matter. You just have to be honest about who you are and what you want. 6 months after the canceled wedding, Olivia and I were at a coffee shop when she suddenly started laughing. What? I asked. Do you remember when I told you to sit with the kitchen staff at the wedding? Because you looked too shabby for the family table? Vividly. I was such an idiot. You were wearing hospital scrubs because you had just finished saving someone's life, and I was worried about you embarrassing me in front of people who turned out to be shallow and fake. She shook her head. The person I should have been embarrassed by was myself. You were trying to impress people you thought mattered. They didn't matter. You did. You always did. I just couldn't see it. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. That's what sisters do, I replied. We save each other, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. A woman approached our table hesitantly. Excuse me, are you Dr. Maya Torres? Yes? I just wanted to thank you. My daughter was going to marry someone who turned out to be just like Marcus Wellington. She saw your story in the news and it gave her the courage to investigate. She found out he was lying about everything. You saved her life. After she left, Olivia looked at me with tears in her eyes. You didn't just save me, you saved so many people. Theodore Wellington became an unexpected friend. He started donating substantial amounts to City General Hospital's trauma unit. He also established a foundation to help victims of financial fraud, with Olivia as its director. Your sister has good instincts once she stops caring what other people think, he told me during a foundation meeting. She reminds me of your grandmother. All that energy finally pointed in the right direction. The media attention eventually died down, and I returned to my normal life of surgeries and long shifts. But something had changed. My family started showing up at the hospital, not because I was sick, but because they wanted to see where I worked. My father came to watch me give a lecture to medical students. My mother volunteered in the hospital's patient family center, and Olivia started joining me for my morning runs, asking questions about medicine and surgery and what it felt like to save a life. I think I judged you because I was jealous, she admitted one morning as we jogged through the park. You always knew what you wanted to do. You had this sense of purpose. I was just floating, trying to be what everyone expected instead of figuring out who I actually was. You're figuring it out now, I pointed out. That's what matters. I'm 28. I feel like I wasted my 20s. You learned important lessons. That's not wasted. That's just a different kind of education. 1 year after the canceled wedding, our family gathered for Thanksgiving at my parents' house. But this time, the dynamics were completely different. Olivia talked about her work at the foundation with genuine passion. I shared stories from the hospital. My parents asked questions and actually listened to the answers. You know what I realized? My father said during dessert. I spent 30 years building a medical supply company, but I never really understood what doctors do with those supplies. I never saw the lives being saved until I watched Maya work. What changed? Olivia asked. Perspective, he replied, looking at me. I was so focused on business metrics and profit margins that I forgot the whole point. Helping people. Maya never forgot that. She never lost sight of what actually matters. My mother raised her glass. To Maya, for saving not just Olivia's life, but all of our lives. You reminded us what family really means. I felt my throat tighten with unexpected emotion. For so many years, I had felt invisible in my own family. Now, finally, they saw me, really saw me. Not as a disappointment or a failure, but as someone who had quietly been doing extraordinary things while they looked elsewhere. To family, I echoed, raising my glass. The real kind. The kind that shows up when it matters. 2 years later, I received an invitation to speak at a medical conference about my trauma surgery techniques. But the organizer also asked if I would share my story about stopping Marcus Wellington. It's not really medical, I pointed out. It's about diagnosis and treatment, he replied. You saw the symptoms, investigated, and performed a precise intervention that saved your patient. The fact that your patient was your sister and the disease was financial fraud doesn't make it less relevant. I gave the talk to a packed auditorium. I expected to talk mostly about my surgical career. Instead, people wanted to hear about pattern recognition, evidence gathering, and strategic intervention. They wanted to know how to protect their own families from predatory behavior. Afterward, a young doctor approached me. My mother is dating someone who seems too good to be true. Your talk made me realize I should investigate before it goes too far. Thank you for showing that sometimes the best surgery is the one that prevents damage before it happens. That's when I understood something fundamental. My grandmother had told me that being a surgeon meant fixing what was broken, but the best doctors prevent things from breaking in the first place. That's what I had done for Olivia. And by sharing my story, I was helping others do the same. The Dragon Goddess in Rags nickname started as a joke. A reporter had written an article about how I had come to the family dinner in scrubs, looking like nothing, while hiding the power to destroy Marcus's entire operation. Like a dragon goddess disguised as a peasant, she wrote, underestimated until she revealed her true form. 3 years after the canceled wedding, Olivia called me from the foundation office. Maya, you need to see this. I met her downtown at a small coffee shop. She was practically vibrating with excitement. We just got an anonymous donation of $2 million to the foundation. The note said, "Thank you for teaching me that real power is protecting others, not exploiting them. A reformed predator." Who do you think it's from? I asked. I don't know. Maybe one of Marcus's old business associates who got scared after seeing what happened to him. Maybe someone who was planning something similar and changed their mind. Does it matter? I smiled. No. What matters is that the message got through. that people are learning. As we sat there, I thought about the journey from that moment in my parents' dining room, being told to sit with the kitchen staff, being dismissed as shabby and unimportant, to this, to knowing that I had changed things, not just for Olivia, but for everyone who might have been Marcus's next victim. My grandmother used to say that true power is quiet. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't seek attention, it simply acts when necessary, precisely and effectively, and then returns to the work that matters. That day at my sister's almost wedding, I had worn rags, hospital scrubs, messy hair, exhausted from saving lives. But underneath, I was exactly what I needed to be: a dragon goddess, a surgeon, a sister, someone who understood that sometimes the greatest act of love is destroying the thing that looks perfect to save the person you care about. The wedding never happened, but something better did. My sister found herself. My family found perspective. And I learned that being underestimated isn't a weakness, it's camouflage. People still ask me if I regret destroying Olivia's wedding, if I feel guilty for the public humiliation, if I wish I had handled it differently. My answer is always the same. I didn't destroy her wedding. I destroyed a trap disguised as a wedding. There's a difference. Olivia got married eventually, 3 years later, to a kind man who teaches high school history and coaches soccer. He doesn't have money or connections or a famous last name, but when he looks at my sister, he sees her, not her trust fund or her family connections or what she can do for him. Their wedding was small, intimate, and real. And I sat at the family table wearing scrubs again because I had come straight from surgery. But this time, when Olivia saw me, she smiled and said, "That's my sister, the one who saves lives, including mine." I gave a toast at that wedding, too. It was short and simple: to love that's real, to people who see us for who we actually are, and to second chances. As I raised my glass, I caught my reflection in one of the venue's mirrors. Simple scrubs, messy hair, no makeup. The same rags I had worn that day 3 years ago when I stood invisible in my parents' dining room. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I never had been, really. I had just been surrounded by people who couldn't see past the surface, who mistook quiet power for weakness, who thought a dragon goddess would announce herself with fanfare instead of slipping in unnoticed, wearing rags, and changing everything. My sister's wedding, the day the dragon goddess wore rags,